Jump right into our problem. Sandy has 16 roses, 8 daisies, and 32 tulips. She wants to arrange all of the flowers in bouquets. Each bouquet should have the same type of flower and the same number of flowers. What is the greatest number of flowers that could be in a bouquet? Whoa, I don't know about you, but there's a lot of information in this problem and I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Let's start by simply taking some information out of our problem that we need in order to solve this situation. So we know that she's got a whole bunch of different flowers and she wants to put the flowers into bouquets. So I know that she's got 16 roses. She has 8 daisies. And lastly, she has 32 tulips. Then, as I reread my problem, I see that it says that each bouquet should have the same type of flower. So that means that if I have a bouquet, it will only have roses or only have daisies or only have tulips. We won't be mixing our flowers together, so that's good to know. And it says the same number of flowers. So if I have 2 roses in a bouquet, I'll have 2 daisies, I'll have 2 tulips. So the number of flowers should be the same throughout. What is the greatest number of flowers that could be in a bouquet? So that's my question that I'm trying to find my answer to. What's the greatest number of flowers that could be in a bouquet? So let's start by looking at 16. And I've got some counters to help us initially here, and then we might move away from those counters. So I've got 16 counters here, and that helps me understand that I could have one bouquet of 16 flowers, right? 16 roses. So I could have one bouquet of 16, or I could have 16 bouquets of 1 rose. Now, I wonder if I could split these 16 counters that are representing my roses into 2 rows, which would represent 2 bouquets. Let's see. And look at that. That does work out as well. So when I split my 16 counters into 2 rows, I'm finding that I have 2 rows of 8. I'm making arrays here, right? So I have 2 and 8, and I'm starting to realize I'm finding factors of 16. So I'm going to keep going with these counters, but then as we move through our problem, we can continue just finding factors. And now I'm checking to see if 3 is a factor of 16, and I'm going to do that by making 3 rows here and seeing if I have any left over, and it looks like I do. I have this last piece that's tailing off the end here. There's an extra counter in this row, and so I'm realizing 3 is not a factor of 16. But I'm going to try 4. And I'm rearranging my counters here, and I find, look at that, 4 does. I have 4 rows of 4, so I don't have to write that factor twice. I only have to write it one time. I know because of the commutative property that the product would be 16. So I've found now my factors of 16. I'm going to work over on my daisies now, and I'm going to be thinking of factor pairs. So I know that 1 and 8 are factor pairs of the number 8. I also know that 2 and 4 are factor pairs of the number 8. 3, nothing and 3 multiply together to become 8. No whole numbers in 3. And then I get to 4, which I've already got here. And I know that 5, 6, or 7 are not factors of 8. So I'm all finished here. All right, and let's move on to our last group of flowers, our tulips. So I know factor pairs for 32 are 1 and 32. I also know that 32 is divisible by 2 because it ends in an even number. And I know that 2 and 16 are factor pairs. If I wasn't sure of that, I might know that 2 and 15 are factor pairs for 30. They make the product 30, so that can help me get to 2 and 16 as factor pairs for 32. I know 3 is not a factor of 32 because 3 times 10 is 30 and 3 times 11 is 33. So there's no whole number that multiplies by 3 to get to 32. I do know, however, that 4 is a factor of 32. I know that 4 and 8 are a factor pair of 32. 5 is not a factor of 32 because that does not end in a 5 or a 0. 6 is not a factor of 32. I know 6 times 6 is 36. So my next multiple below 36 of 6 will be 30. And so those are not 6 is not a factor of 32. Going through, continuing, I know that 7 is also not a factor of 32. There's no basic fact that multiplies, that includes 7 to get to 32. And then we've got 8 here. So it looks like we're pretty good to go on this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look across my different numbers of flowers here, because my problem told me that we need to have the same number of flowers in each bouquet. So I'm seeing that I could have 1 flower in all of the bouquets. I could also have 2 flowers in all of the bouquets. I could have 4 of each type of flower in all of our bouquets. And I could also have 8 of each type of flower in all of the bouquets. I see roses and tulips both have 16 as a factor that they share in common, but daisies do not, right? I can't put 16 daisies in one bouquet because I only have 8. So even though 16 is in common between both roses and tulips, that number is not in common for all 3. And so it wouldn't be an option in this situation. Now, I know that I have to look at the numbers that are the same, and then my question tells me what is the greatest number of flowers that could be in a bouquet, and I'm seeing the greatest number is 8 flowers. So we just found the greatest common factor between 3 different numbers, and the answer to our question is that the greatest common factor is 8 flowers.